Thank you guys. For some reason, mine's not.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I'll take care of it. No need to bother you with the file switching afterwards and everything. So I think I'm good to go. Just Paul,
Thanks,
I need
Rob.
the reminder at the end
Yep,
to upload it.
you got it.
And just so you know, as Gabe mentioned earlier, we invite people to use the chat, and that's going to be particularly true in this very initial exercise where we're going to both sharing verbal comments, but because we'd like to hear as much as possible from people in a short period of time, we'd like to invite you to also respond to the questions using the chat. And then we'll save the chat afterwards as well and make sure all of those comments get recorded. And again, Paul, as a reminder, both of us, let's make sure we save that chat before we sign off. So I'm going to zoom us in on, the main questions we're going to focus on initially. And I'd ask that when you first speak, if you could please just introduce yourself briefly and then share your comment. And I again would like folks to use the raise hand function. It makes it a little easier for me to track who would like to say something and call on them somewhat in order. So again, part one is focusing on brainstorming assets and issues. I like to first focus on what makes the area unique and special. It's assets. I'd like to take that first so that all the comments in the chat are focused on that and we can organize those notes afterwards. So talking about the northeast part of Petaluma, what makes this area unique and special that you definitely don't want to change or you want to preserve for sure?
I can't find where's the raised hand thing?
Depending on your version of Zoom, it may be under reactions.
Look at that.
Yeah, the more 3 dots reactions.
Yes, got it.
All right, looks like Lane and then Sherry have found it. Lane, go ahead.
Hey, my name's Lane, and I live on Madeira Circle. And I would say our street, something that people always really, comment on. It was what drew me to our street is it's completely lined with sycamore trees on both sides. So just a very green and lush feeling to the neighborhood, thanks to all the trees.
That is something to love about our neighborhood. Thank you, Sherry.
I live in Creekview Commons HOA, which is between Sonoma Mountain Parkway and Lucchese Park, and we a quarter-mile long property that parallels Lynch Creek. And there's a walking path behind there that neighbors use. So my main concerns are climate change and water and fire hazard. And as far as our whole area is concerned, I'm wondering about a traffic light or four-way stop or something at the post office that's farther down McDowell, or at Lagunitas Beer, because you're not supposed to make a left turn, and it's just, I see potential disasters happening there.
Thank you. And Paul, when you have a second, if you can move that second part of the comment over to the other column. And also, Sherry, when we get to the mapping exercise, if you could be sure to also show us exactly on the map where that is, that would be very helpful.
I shall. And then the third thing I was wondering about, like gray water, which I understand the city is now using just for your own, not just our municipal areas. Do you ever see a time where they would open, where the city would open gray water irrigation to large swaths of green space that belong to HOAs or homeowners?
So that would be an opportunity for improvement. And just so I'm clear, the traffic light stop sign issue was an asset or a challenge to overcome?
Oh my God.
It
doesn't exist right now, so I guess it's
okay. So it's an improvement that's needed. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Hey, don't see much going on in the chat. I'm an introvert, so I always like to type my responses, but people can feel free to do that or chime in verbally. Anyone have anything else they could share, focusing initially on what makes the area unique and special? Jasmine. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, hello.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, I live on the Mauro Pietro Drive. And our area is special because there are many families. Our kids can play outside and ride their bikes to school. And we enjoy the creek path for walks and just enjoy walking around in the neighborhood. That's about it.
All right, sounds like a great place to raise a family. Thank you. Other thoughts on what makes that northeast part of Petaluma unique and special?
Other hand. Raise hand.
Jerry, you had another comment?
Yes, I didn't realize until I looked at the map, but we're special because there's a lot of shopping centers, one after another along McDowell. So I would say most of the shopping centers in Petaluma fall in our quadrant.
Okay, thanks. So it's easy to get to where you need to pick stuff up.
Yes, very much so.
All right, thank you. John, I see your hand raised. Can you please unmute yourself?
Okay, yeah, John Shribs. I live near the corner of Washington and Sonoma Mountain in Eli. It's the intersection there. And one of the things that we have that most of the parts of the city does not have is probably the largest single park right now in Lucchese Park, as well as the community center, which is hugely used every weekend for lots of parties. And as the soccer fields that are being used and the ball fields, the Field of Miracles is there. And we have the pond, which is, there's people walking around and watching the ducks and feeding the ducks all the time there. So it's a very lovely, well-used park, farmers market included. So it's like a central location. And with other parks that we have some open space that I think is underutilized, which is along the strip, along at the very, I guess, the eastern edge. We have a pathway that goes all the way from the airport. In fact, it goes across the entire town, a 5-mile long path, all the way from Casa Grande Road, all the way up to Corona Road, the same path. Travels all that way. And there's a lot of vacant land that the city owns along that pathway that has an opportunity for development into, I would hopefully be parks and forest area for more activities for this, for folks to go in that besides just walking, they could be doing other things in that area. And then we're along the edge on that whole eastern side, we do have the hills and the mountains. And so there's some pastures, grasslands, and agricultural use of these hills. It's not real obvious how intensive it is. It seems to be low intensity agriculture in this particular zone, and is our fire buffer for any fire that's coming across from Sonoma toward us. And so we need to hopefully preserve that area and keep that as a stable fire buffer for the city. So it's just some positive things. And one thing that someone said about the Lagunitas, that whole area was developed industrial wise, but is now becoming more, because the Lagunitas is being more used. And there's a lot of housing that's gone in there, and there's whole areas in the north there that could be extended, turned into housing. And we need to, and there's very few parks on that whole area. Besides Lucchese, all of a sudden it's a dearth of parks for folks, places for folks to go. In that area near the freeway. And so we have an underserved community there at that in the freeway area that could use more open space and parks. So that's just a short list that I've got going. Well, I am on the GPAC, so I have a few extra things I've heard about.
Hey, thank you, John. Let's get one more set of things we love about the area from Chris, then we'll shift to additional areas for improvement. Chris?
So my name's Chris. I live in Turtle Creek on the east side. What I really enjoy about my area is that this neighborhood has great trees. So it's a wonderful place to go for a walk. We butt up against Prince Park. So there's a big park, green space near here. Somebody else mentioned the walking trail. There's that long walking trail. I can get on it a block and a half from my house. So that's a really great thing about being on the east side. I've lived on both sides of town. Another great thing about being on the east side, somebody mentioned the shopping centers. Sometimes they're not too attractive, but it is convenient to get to the grocery store or get to what you need to get to without having to fight the traffic from the west side to the east side. So those are just a few of the things I like about being in this neighborhood.
Excellent. You guys are convincing me to retire to Petaluma and move to this part of town. Thank you. Some people have already alluded to it, but let's shift our attention now to issues facing the area. A few have been mentioned. Sometimes they're the flip side of some of the assets. And by the way, I'm also seeing great comments in the chat. Someone mentioned you guys have a great English-Spanish immersion academy in the area, which is a resource for families. That's great to hear. Thoughts specific to issues facing the area. Some folks have mentioned opportunities related to making better use of open space, some intersection improvements needed. I was curious on the water and fire hazards. John kind of alluded to specific areas, hazards, that may be specific to the area. So if people want to say a bit more about what it is about this part of town that may be particularly vulnerable, that would be very helpful. You want to raise your hand and share a comment or share in the chat? Sherry, what issues are
I'm sorry,
facing
I
the
didn't
area?
hear the last word that you said, that you're looking for comments about what for fire and water? I didn't hear that.
Well, I think you had shared those general topics. I assumed you were speaking specifically about this part of town, though we do know that they face the entire city. But were there particular hazards unique to this part of town that you had in mind?
Oh, and you said hazards. Okay, I just didn't hear what the specific words you said. Well, we had a brush fire in Lynch Creek end of July, so that was a little scary.
Was that actually along the trail?
Lynch Creek along where our houses are. Yeah, so there's a walkway, there's a green belt. It's not the walk path that other neighbors have mentioned in this session, but a lot of neighbors just walk behind our townhomes along the path. But my main question is, as far as overarching with Petaluma and climate change and so forth, do we see drought as continuing on into the future, or do we see cyclical and there's going to be heavy rains? Because I also enjoy the trees and so forth that other neighbors have mentioned. I like xeriscaping, provided it's not in my backyard. But I mean, is it realistic to say that our trees and plant life are going to continue 5 years from now?
Yeah.
I guess that's a much bigger question than just our neighborhood. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's not unique to this part of town, but that will definitely be addressed as part of the general plan effort. Lane, I see your hand raised, but I'd also invite Mandy, Joy, who I don't think we've heard from yet. If you do want to share anything, feel free to jump in, either raise your hand or share a comment by chat. Lane, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have 2 teenagers, and I think our part of town has lots of, young families. And every time I drive by the empty Kmart on McDowell, I think, wow, wouldn't that be cool to turn that space into some sort of a youth center, or like indoor putt or some sort of, places for teens to hang out. I just feel like we need, we have to drive to Roner Park to play mini golf or go to Scandia or anything like that. So it'd be great to have more, I guess, local businesses or a youth center or something that provides opportunities for, youth to have fun up in our part of the town.
Great. Yeah, Jasmine just
Secondly-
voted for an ice rink in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, something. And then secondly, I really hope that we can get a second smart station at that Corona Road area and build lots of very affordable housing, right there by the smart station and have buses come, because seems like some of the affordable housing that I've seen proposed is like really far away from shopping and transit. And I just feel like affordable housing needs to be centered around transit and shopping. So people, so it's just a nice place to live.
Great, thank you. Jasmine, you wanted to share another comment?
Um, yes, so we live just across from the Brody Ranch development, so very close to the proposed smart train station. We are hopeful also that will be built, and also we are hoping that there will be some mixed use for that area, including maybe a coffee shop, or kids would like to see an ice cream shop or a restaurant, or some other things to do besides just housing. And also the walkability from here to McDowell is very difficult to walk on Corona Road because there's no sidewalk. So we would like to see a sidewalk being built on Corona Road to connect the Brody Ranch area with the other side. And also on McDowell, as somebody mentioned, the walking to Lagunitas would be really great. It was disappointing to see the new lawn put in front of the post office and not having a sidewalk still, which seems kind of silly. I think I know there is a community over there that would like to also see more walkability, and being just able to go to the Kohl's shopping center or the restaurants over there would be great. I think those are our main issues right now.
Excellent, thank you all. These are all great comments, both that you're sharing verbally and in the chat. I think what I want to do at this point is shift to part 2 of the exercise. Lots of your comments have been very place specific anyway, and so having the map as the point of reference might facilitate that even further. So what we have here is I'm gonna keep this on the screen, and what Paul's gonna do is, as you share responses to the questions, which I'll revisit here in a second again, he'll grab Post-its, put them on the place you're talking about, and then add notes. And the notes will be added over here to the left. Whoops. Don't let me move your stuff there, Paul. We're talking about generally areas of change and areas of stability. The 3 questions that are driving our mapping are: where should the mix of housing, shopping, and jobs be changed? Several of you have already spoken to that question. We'd like to map those areas. What parts of the area should remain the same? I haven't talked so much about that. We've talked about some of the assets, but maybe you might think some are worth calling out as being sure to protect. And then also, what other types of improvements would you like to see? Some people have already mentioned walkability, traffic signaling improvements, that sort of thing. So we're very interested in where you think there's opportunities to further enhance your community with other infrastructure, facilities, or other improvements. So I'm going to zoom in on the map primarily so you can see pretty well. In the background, Paul will be grabbing notes and recording your comments specific to particular areas you'd like to either preserve, see the land use or development type change, or otherwise identify for improvements. We've talked about the Corona station here area, a lot of comments about McDowell and the park and the river, buffer out here. Jasmine, your hand is still raised. Did you have comments for the mapping exercise, or just still up from your previous comment? Thanks. John, you have some mapping suggestions.
Yes, on the smart train, as it's running all the way through, there's lots of nice countryside out there on our side of town as it extends out. And hopefully we can get a better path next to it for bicycling and walking that would be miles long, that would go all the way up to maybe even Santa Rosa. And so make sure that that smart train pathway gets established and done. And let's not forget about it for both bicycles and pedestrians. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that little strip of land over by, we have by Kenilworth School, that long green strip there, turn that into a multi-use park forest area. And then the area that's over by Old Redwood Highway, you have 2 green spaces there, and I'm not sure exactly what properties those encompass there. But there is some, this whole annexing as a possibility, right where you have the one now, there's a large gray area that's outside of our city limits. And there has been some proposals that we need some affordable housing near there, which would be near the Corona station. So maybe a small section of that corner right in there could be annexed for affordable housing associated with the Corona station and transport by Sonoma Mountain Parkway and using the train station and the Corona Road. And then the Corona Road access across the bridge, we need to work on our Corona Road access across town. That should be a bridge, a widened bridge of 4 lanes, not 2 lanes. We've already had an accident there. It is old and narrow. So access across the freeway and the river off of Corona needs to be improved in that whole section there. So those are just some of the suggestions I would have.
Excellent. And Paul, I know that was a lot. So my suggestion is the blue one, maybe move the blue one just up a little bit away from the Corona station area, because he was speaking to the trailways that would go nicely next to the railroad right of way. And then the orange one was more the potential area for annexation right there. Yeah, right there at Corona. And then what he was just speaking to was this area where Corona is crossing both 101 and the river, where he sees opportunities for the bridge improvements.
Yeah, I'd add one more, and that is we do have a hospital on our side of town, which is really nice, along with lots of medical offices that, like maybe in the first category that we talked about, the assets. But one of the things that I think is not talked about much is our emergency services, and particularly in the case of an earthquake. And being an earth science teacher, I'm well aware that we do have fault lines, that this whole area but our quadrant up here is especially an old wetland. And in the wintertime, it is basically a jello for earthquake. And so we're going to have, when an earthquake does happen, it's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we get that 7 or 8 size earthquake. Our side of town here, being suburbia, is not prepared at all, even with the hospital having all the access stuff there. So we really need to work on making sure that we have a whole emergency center at the hospital area that folks can go to in case of an earthquake, and that everyone should know what to do. So that whole earthquake plan needs to be more uniform across the board and more emphasized throughout the community, because nobody really is paying attention.
And John, just so I'm clear, are you talking about both enhancements to the hospital and improved call times for emergency services, or is just the facility improved?
I'm looking for like an emergency facilities at the hospital particularly for earthquake and possibly fire, that we're now facing these disasters that we are not prepared for at all at this time. And so the hospital area has a large bit of land there that could be used more extensively for an emergency service area.
Thank you for clarifying, and thank you, Paul, for capturing that extra comment in response to the part 1 questions. And just for our assistance, Ingrid, maybe we could use a little help here. Where exactly is the hospital in the area? I apologize.
It's right off of McDowell Boulevard.
And Cross Street?
Just go from Lucchese Park and just head north just a little bit. It's right about there.
Here. On the north or south side?
It's on the, it would be on the east side of McDowell.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
The north, yes, in
northeast.
there. Yeah,
So right in here?
Right
there you go.
Yeah.
So down where I'm moving my cursor
right there.
around, Paul?
That large piece right there that you're pointing at, right about there is right about where it is. Yes.
Where the arrow is, or where the
Where the arrow is, at the point of the arrow.
Okay, Paul down. Yeah, thank you, Paul.
There it is.
Thank you. All right, lots of great comments. What other ideas do we have for specific locales in this part of town that need a land use change, different type of housing or office or shopping? or other type of improvement. But, and also remember, our question on the table is what should stay the way it is and remain stable. So Sherry, go ahead.
I just want to add to what John said, was that I was not aware of the wetlands aspect of this northeast quadrant. I think anyone who's lived in California for more than a day is aware of earthquake danger, but not to the extent that John mentioned. So if there is a way to promote that more of our particular neighborhood and, you know, terroir, if you will, I think that would be a good thing or useful.
Excellent. And I see Paul capturing that over here in the notes. Thank you. What else would we like to pin on the map for sure? Specific places where you think there's it's appropriate or ready for redevelopment or a different type of use, different type of housing, higher density housing, lower density housing, different changes in shopping centers, could be further enhancements to existing facilities like John mentioned, to a hospital or a park or other public facilities or assets. Other ideas?
I'll toss in one more idea. We have a Lynch Creek Trail that goes under the freeway and is a good cross-town connector for bicycling and walking, which is used quite a bit now. I've been on it several times recently. And the Lynch Creek Trail, though, ends in our section of town here, just by Sonoma Mountain Parkway. It pretty much ends there and needs to, there's a little bit of continuation, but it'd be nice if it continued all the way up Sonoma Mountain and just kept on going past Rooster Run and just all the way up, and to create a nice path to go up into the hills up there. So that'd be a nice addition to have, and that would support a whole east-west corridor for both people and for wildlife, because I know that is a wildlife corridor also.
So Paul, that's up here in this Rooster, just to the kind of southwest of Rooster Run Golf Course.
Yeah, so right there and all the way up to the hills, way up into the hills.
Yeah.
It's also a salmon run for fish. It's used
Great.
on that creek, as well as the Adobe and also Washington Creek a little bit. But Lynch Creek is known as a salmon run area, and we need to advertise more about what a nice place this is, running right across our section of town.
Excellent. And do you want it to connect to the proposed improved greenway here as well, I assume?
Yes, well, it does. It already does. But past Rooster Run, all the way up. See, all that whole gray area going all the way up.
All right,
It'd be nice if we could actually access that land and put a walking and a bicycle path up the hill.
And is
that
this
goes
all
up
here?
to
This
Sonoma
all
Mountain.
here is currently open space.
Yes, it's fairly open space. A lot of agriculture is still up in that whole section there. It's privately owned ag, I think.
Yeah, and I apologize. I meant to show you these earlier. For reference, if anyone would like to see, we do have an existing land use map down here, so showing its open space. Also, if anyone wants to zoom in super close, we have a aerial map, if that's helpful. So thank you, John. I see Chris has her hand raised. Oh,
Yeah.
Unmute.
Yep. So just to an earlier point, somebody mentioned about the up around Brody Ranch, the need for sidewalks, more happening there. So I know there's talk about affordable housing at Corona and McDowell. And I would just say there should be a push to really have that be developed as sort of a destination where there would be stores there would be retail, maybe it'd be like local artisan things or chess tables for kids, intergenerational stuff. I think the people who are considering developing it definitely want to put basketball courts in, but I think that whatever happens at near the train station really needs to, obviously housing is the first priority, but there needs to be a lot of amenities and a lot of thought going into how do we develop that part of our town so it's really attractive and inviting. And like I said earlier, I live in Turtle Creek. I live close to that green belt at the east side of it. I'm not able to walk all the way to McDowell. I have a housemate who's able to do that. So basically, if I want to buy anything, I need to get in my car and or use my computer and click on Amazon. And I don't, I don't see how we could put retail like a more along Sonoma Mountain Parkway down towards Washington. But boy, if somebody had clever ideas how to open up some of these developments and neighborhoods so that there would be gathering places or retail or neighborhood stores. I don't know how it would work, but that would be great.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, Paul, on number 5 there, could you be sure to capture that idea of, walkability, connectivity needing improvement, specifically from the housing development here, preferably through this green strip to the broader bike ped network. Thank you. I see Sherry's hand raised, and I'm really enjoying watching the comments in the chat as well. Thank you, Lane and Jasmine and others. Sherry, go ahead.
I have a few comments because my townhome complex starts at Sonoma Mountain Parkway and then goes down. It's like you see that green area between Sonoma Mountain Parkway and Maria Drive. I think that's Lynch Creek, or that's where we are. And yeah, right, all the way down. And I understand walkability. I understand getting older and having more limited mobility, but I respectfully disagree with some of the comments. I think retail along McDowell is where it should be. Sonoma Mountain Parkway is a thoroughfare through residential areas, and I do not particularly see retail areas starting up there. I could see maybe a shuttle bus that zips through like Turtle Creek or other neighborhoods to take residents to the shopping centers on McDowell, but I do not see any, there is no commercial space along Sonoma Mountain Parkway there. I don't think.
So thank you, Paul. What I'm hearing is maybe a blue note along McDowell basically reinforcing the idea that shopping should stay focused along that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and then another one up on Sonoma Mountain Parkway, suggesting that it should also more largely stay the way it is without the addition of
residential. And then the second point that John Shribs made as far as Lynch Creek Trail, the area along Lynch Creek Trail goes through the backyard of our HOA, is the green belt there. And it's 15 feet from the back of our townhomes. It's not set up it's not a community space for a bike path and a this path and a that path, with all due respect, John, because I understand what you're saying, but it's really more of a very small neighborhood-y kind of thing. So
thank you, Sherry, and thank you for acknowledging that there are going to be differences of perspective, which is great. We want to hear all different perspectives, and one of the benefits of a planning process like this is we'll have an opportunity to compare different choices when we get into the alternatives phase. That's the whole purpose of that phase, so people can make informed decisions about what's best for the city. Sometimes it's tough decisions, sometimes there's trade-offs to make. So it's great to hear a variety of different perspectives. Thank you. I'm seeing a note too. Erica, the planning director, noted that on tomorrow night's PC meeting, I believe the supportive housing project, the Meridian Corona Station, is on the agenda. If people have a particular interest in that project and want to listen in and or share some comments. Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome.
John, I see you have your hand raised again. More ideas for what to keep the same, improve, or change?
Toss some more ideas out for at least evaluation and back comment. I'd love to have folks think about different ways of doing things. But another access point, I know Rainier is right now is set up as, in theory, as a crosstown connector underneath the freeway that's already being built at $7 million. However, at the $130 million needed to do a a road goes all the way across along the bridge over both the railroad and the river is probably not going to be economically feasible at this point in time. But since we already have the freeway doing its thing for $7 million, I would propose that we put make that into a pedestrian and bicycle access that would go over the railroad and over the river, and it'd be a very low impact type of situation and much less expensive than the $130 million. And then if we extend that out, we could actually crisscross from Sonoma Mountain Parkway, Rainier, all the way across Midtown, right on over to access the central downtown, connecting it with Petaluma Boulevard there.
Okay, John weighs in on the controversial
Rainier project, yes.
city connector. Yeah, thank you, John. Hey, we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. I want to again invite anyone who hasn't shared comments yet, either in the chat or by raising his or her hand, to please do so at this point. We invite responses to any of the questions that we've been considering. What types of improvements would you like to see in the area? What should remain the same? What mix of housing, shopping, and other uses should be changed? And anything else you forgot to mention yet about what you love about the area, or issues that it's facing. Before I allow Sherry to comment again, just want to hold for another second to see if anyone who hasn't shared yet would like to. Thank you again to everybody who's sharing in the chat. Sherry, go ahead.
I'd like to follow up on something that Lane said and some other people who are parents with teenagers. I think an adult's perception of what teens want may be a little bit different than what teens actually want. So if it is possible for the planning process, maybe to have a question or survey at Casa Grande High School, which is on the east side, not this quadrant, but on the east side, and hear from teens specifically what they would like. I think that might be helpful.
Excellent suggestion. They're often hard to reach in a planning process like this, but sometimes the most important voices, because it's their future city that we're planning for.
Yeah, and Kenilworth Junior High is right there at the very top. That would be even as important, even more important, because those teenagers are the younger ones, and they need to have a voice and heard, whether it be a skate park that they need or more activities that they can do, because our part of town is basically a suburbia set up for adults.
All right.
Sorry, whoops.
Hey, curious in our final minutes here, anyone particularly excited about sharing the highlights of our conversation with the larger group when we go back into the main room?
No.
Anyone?
No.
All right, I guess it's you, Paul.
But I just want to say, Ron, first of all, thank you very much. You know, as far as I'm going to hop off and not go back to the main thing, main conversation thing. First of all, thank you very much. I know this is your life's work for planning. I'm sort of disappointed that more people haven't participated in the call, because there's a lot of people who live on the Northeast quadrant. I'm very happy I did. I've taken notes about some of my neighbors. I think I'm in the phone book. And so I look forward to staying in touch with some of the residents on the east side on beyond this planning meeting.
Yeah, no, thanks for that comment. We do encourage people to spread the word. Those of you who are already on the general plan update project email list, please forward that on to your friends and neighbors when you hear about events. We're always looking for ways to expand outreach and communication, so appreciate the observation. We've been talking internally about some adjustments to make sure we're getting the word out across the board. So thank you. I think they're going to bounce us back here momentarily. I want to thank everybody again for all the great comments. Paul, if you could grab the chat really quickly, I'd appreciate it. And we'll be sure to integrate all these comments together. A report will be prepared summarizing what we've heard from everybody, which will be posted on the website. So you can review that. And then we'll use this as critical input as we move forward, clarifying vision and guiding principles for the city, but also beginning to think about the alternatives phase and where we want to see change, what we want to preserve for the city. So thank you all. again, and this is not the last chance by any means. In the final moments of the present or workshop tonight, we'll share some upcoming opportunities to continue to stay involved.
If we have a minute, okay, really quickly, I was going to say, I had read about this in an email that went out from the city, and then I didn't save the email. And so I went back to the city website, and it took me forever to find the link to where this was located. So like when this is coming up, maybe having a little thing on the homepage of the city website or making it a little easier to find would be really
Okay, no, that's
helpful.
great. That's good input. I mean, because these projects can be so involved, there's a separate web page for it. But that's a good point that we should make sure there's a prominent link right on the homepage for the city directing people there. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think they're going to bump us back automatically in 19 seconds here. So again, thanks everybody. It was good to meet some of you virtually. I look forward to working with you throughout the rest of the planning process. I was kidding,
And
Paul.
Ron, you can stop recording too.
A great time in your small groups. I know we did. We're going to wait just one more second here, make sure everyone has an opportunity to get back here to this main room. I still see potentially a few folks that are in the other rooms. Maybe just 5 more seconds here. Okay. I think we have pretty much everyone back with us. Thank you again for sticking with us and all the great input you provided. I know we had a great discussion here in this room. And now we just want to do a quick round robin and get a very short overview of the conversation that was held. It might be easiest to bring your map up and we can kind of, you know what, actually, I could just bring the map up and move room to room to make it easier for everyone. So this time I'm going to start with room number 3, and Christina, if you're ready to share or whoever you might have nominated to have share out what you all talked about. And I could zoom into your map for you.
Thanks. I love going first. I was actually trying to message David on the side. David, do you want to do our group's report out?
I think I was focused on the nuts and bolts of the notes. So I think you do a better overview of all the things.
Oh boy. Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't get the opportunity. I missed my role in volunteering somebody else to go through this. All right. So, we had a lot of conversation around the fact that this is a pretty heavily residential neighborhood, that is a major resource that's well connected by trails, but there is a need to address safety issues in getting around and transportation, to address the congestion on the Washington Street corridor, and think about connections to across 101, whether that be enhancing the Corona crossing, making that wider and safer, or thinking about other crossings and thinking about non-vehicular priority crossings like Lynch Creek Tail or in the vicinity of Rainier. We talked about the importance of open space in this neighborhood, both for wildlife and for humans, and the idea of wildlife crossing through. Also the idea of focusing some potentially development around the Corona Road station, whether that be infill development so that we aren't expanding the urban growth boundary, or considering expanding the urban growth boundary, particularly just adjacent to the Corona Road station. And I just wrote all my kinds of notes all over the place. This was not what I was meant to do, I apologize. And people really were talking about how the view from the neighborhood and from the open space of the mountain is really important to preserve. Folks in the group, let me know if there's anything that I am not hitting on, or Dave, I can't see our notes about like what folks wanted to change.
The broadband and what Dave was talking about.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. So we did talk about the importance of broadband, especially in a COVID world, of increasing equity through access to broadband. Let's see, I did talk about the importance of the river also in the general open space theme, and needing to address flooding. And I think those were, and then think about kind of creative economic reuse. So whether that be thinking about using hotels for affordable housing or housing the unhoused, or also thinking about having fab maker spaces and other kinds of incubation spaces in this neighborhood.
May I also add one more thing, and that is the noise?
Thanks, Veronica. Thank you. Yeah. So we were hearing that with the elevation of Highway 101, that's really caused an increase in noise impacts in this neighborhood that we should think about treating in more progressive ways than big concrete sound barriers.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I hear a lot of similarities to what we talked about in our group as well. So next I'm going to go to Ron and his group. And
I thought you were segueing to your group, Dave. Thanks.
I was just trying to throw you off. I was trying to throw you off.
Well, like Christina, I was completely unsuccessful at recruiting somebody else to do this. Won't repeat much of what she shared because we heard a lot of parallels in our conversation. But I got to say, what I was struck by was how much people love living in this part of town. Has great recreational and open space and trail assets. Sounds like a real gem of an immersion school. Obviously, they appreciate that the regional community center and park are in their neighborhood. Love how close they are to shopping. And that is not even half the list. In terms of opportunities for change and improvement, I'll try to focus on things Christina didn't already mention. Further enhancing trail and walking and biking opportunities, including connectivity between some of the existing elements. Some comments about how the urban growth boundary and related buffers serve not only to preserve space and views, but also double nicely in a role of hazard mitigation. A lot of specific comments about particular neighborhoods within the town, whether that's how they could use improvements in terms of signaling or traffic or better or different mix of uses or complementary improvements around mobility or the like. Very active chat, and I haven't had a chance to digest the chat yet, but lots of additional great ideas, I think. So I saw at least something about a park, a library annex, and a whole slew of other ideas. So more than I can do justice to, but if I missed anything really critical, anyone else in the group can feel free to chime in at this point if they'd like.
Great, thank you. And just a note while we go to this final room, all of this great information that you shared will be summarized. There'll be a transcript of everything that came through the chat. So you'll see everyone's comments in greater detail that we're providing in this quick snippet. But Chris, did you have something to add to this group before we move to the next? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Just one thing, I think it was John that mentioned the Petaluma Valley Hospital. I thought that was a really interesting comment, the need to really consider that an asset. And he talked about earthquake dangers on this part of town and that there needs to be a focus there about getting that ready and beefing things up there for emergency preparedness, which I'd not heard before, which I thought was a really great comment.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Chris. Okay, last but not least, we'll go to our group, and I asked Michelle to report out for us. I'm just going to focus on the map, and we jumped like right into areas of change and improvement. Everyone wanted to really kind of meld all the questions together, which was great. I will say the ongoing theme, which I saw in everyone else's, was just safer streets in general, and providing and making sure that access for pedestrian, bikes, and cars and movement of cars, particularly through this area, was extremely important. And as roadways cross over railroad tracks. So I just want to highlight that, but I'll hand it over to you, Michelle, if there's anything else that we haven't heard about yet to highlight.
Yeah, a little bit differently from the other groups. There was a lot of great conversation about the train station and the Lagunitas like beer brewery area and how that entire area could be used for future development, but any of that future development should be conscious of the suburban nature and family friendly nature and use of this sub area. There was also a lot of, like Dave mentioned, a lot of conversation about safer routes to school and how all those different trail and railroad and street crossings can be improved and bettered for a lot of different uses and different people with it who live in the area or who visit the area. And just a lot of those types of conversations and similar things to what the other groups mentioned as well.
And I'll add that there was a lot of emphasis on, getting across town without getting, so that this area doesn't feel as isolated, so that, the city divide between the river and the freeway and that being a challenge.
Great point. Great point. Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing all that great information with us. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint again, and we're going to quickly talk through next steps and what's to come. And I believe I'm handing it back over to Ron. Back to you, Ron.
Thank you, Dave. And yeah, I'll try to keep this really quick and get us back home virtually in a few minutes. So as Dave mentioned, I do want to emphasize that we've captured everything you've shared in writing and or audio, and we'll be sure to summarize that neatly and concisely in the summary report along with the other area meetings, which are coming up starting again this Wednesday and then Monday and Wednesday next week. Please do encourage your friends and neighbors to come to a meeting that focuses on their neighborhood. Also, we are going to start having what we call drop-in pop-ups at various events that are either events or places that people frequent, whether it's farmers markets or shopping centers in the coming weeks. Again, because we need so much to hear a variety of different input, this is an attempt at going where people are and giving them a very quick and easy way to share some input. We'll be asking questions on boards that people can respond to in 5 minutes or less around priorities, issues, and opportunities, what they love about Petaluma, and where they'd like to see different types of change. Again, very similar to tonight, but a different format, hopefully very accessible for people who are just coming by the pop-up as part of their daily or weekly routine. So look for those around town. And then also coming up later this summer and fall, if you do want to become more of a planning aficionado and really take a deep dive into general plans and how they relate to the rest of the planning and regulatory framework, encourage you to attend the Planning 101 session on September 8th, co-hosted with Know Before You Grow. Please also mark your calendar for the evening of September 29th. We'll be pulling together a lot of what we hear over the coming weeks through these area meetings and pop-ups and through other means to get closer to a refined vision guiding principles for the city on its way to the city council. Also, for additional educational benefit, we'll be offering some educational forums focused on a variety of key topics facing the city: economic development, climate change, the future of retail, etc. Look for information on those in the coming months and weeks. And then just so you know, we're coming to the city council up in October, sharing some of the highlights of the work we've been doing during that discovery phase, which we've been doing, which we started with and are continuing to wrap up in the coming months. And we'll share some of those insights with city council. This is just a taste of some of what's coming up. Again, we encourage you to sign up for the project email list, which is you can access easily through the planpetaluma.org website. We also, at any time you have questions or comments, feel free to contact the city via the Plan Petaluma email address. Several people monitor that address, and we'll be sure to get a response to any questions people may pose. Website is always the best place to go for the latest information and to direct people who you think may be interested in the project. Again, I guess I'll pass it back over to Dave, but before he closes us out, I just want to again thank everybody. Loved the comments people shared. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy lives. And please continue to stay involved. We'll look forward to working with you over the next 1.5 to 2 years.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ron. I just wanted to elevate a couple of things that came through chat, and I love that you all are thinking about great places for us to have these intercept or pop-up meetings. Lane mentioned going to junior high and high school is definitely high on our list. We definitely want to hear from the future leaders of this city, and that is definitely something we want to do. In front of our grocery stores, definitely agree with that. We want to go to places where we know people are going, especially these days. We do have that on the list of places that we will pop up. And once we get that date finalized, we'll make sure to share that out. And one that I also love is basketball courts, because I love playing basketball. So I'll be there at Leghorn popping up while I play some hoops. So great idea there as well. And we see other great suggestions coming through about St. Vincent Church. We definitely do have that planned as well to focus a pop-up or a few pop-ups, hopefully around the Latinx community, to make sure that we're hearing from those folks as well and providing access for them. Because we want to make sure we're hearing from a diverse cross-section of the entire community. So that will be very important. And we do have other community leaders that are helping us set those up as well. So thank you for that suggestion and highlighting that. And all of these great input that's coming in. Santa Rosa JC, this is fantastic. Keep those ideas coming in. As Ron mentioned, the website is available. There's an opportunity to provide input directly through the website as well. So keep those great ideas or any other thoughts you have from tonight coming as we go down the road here together. So again, unless city staff had anything else to mention, just want to thank you all again for spending this evening with us, and we can go ahead and wrap it up and send you on your way.
Yes, thanks all for attending. This was really fantastic. Come and tell us what you think about the other parts of town as well.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Good night.